Welcome to War on Words, presented by Habari Entertainment. I'm Aisha, and I'll be your moderator. Each topic will take 15 minutes. Are you ready?
Yes,
Let's
ma'am.
do it.
Let's get started.
First, let's introduce everyone. We got I'm Dip.
Jamel.
Tessa.
Tessa.
All right, let's get it going. What's our first topic for the day?
First topic of discussion today is: are you willing to take the COVID-19 vaccine once available? Why or why not?
Hmm.
Let's start with you, Tessa.
Oh, really, I'm not probably not the first try. I'm not really a person who's just all out for taking vaccines.
Mm.
Um,
But you was vaccinated as a kid.
yeah, as a kid, but I didn't really have a
You
choice.
still alive?
You know what I'm saying? Because I was also in the army, so I got the anthrax vaccine, like what my homeboy pointed out to me the other day. So, like, I can't say I'm opposed to vaccines,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, I just don't really trust the first batch that's going out. But even and
What would make you trust it?
um,
Is there
not sure
anything
that
that could be done that would make you trust the vaccine?
I not the first round. You know what I'm saying? Like not the first. For me, it's just not the first
So
round.
what do you
And
feel
I don't
as
even
though-
think we're gonna get the first round.
What
that
do you
comes
feel
out.
as
I
though
think
is a round?
and like the first wave of vaccines that's
So
coming
you
out,
wanna
and
see-
what makes me even more skeptical is like they're pushing it to the old people. Like
Yeah, they're gonna get it first. The,
Like-
the old people and the doctors, frontline people, gonna get it first.
You know, thin the herd.
that's what I was thinking when I heard the old people. I was like, man, they're the most vulnerable.
They're the most
like,
vulnerable. But so I think it was like 12%. They're 12% of the people who get the disease, but like 65% of the people who dying. So they have to definitely get it first. They're dying at alarming rates right now.
Right.
It's a big. What do you think?
No,
No.
I I I believe in patterns,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a pattern coming that I don't like. First off, you don't. We like I said, I think our country has a history of taking 10, 12, 13 years to test something.
Mm.
So for it to happen as fast is weird.
Mhm.
When the HPV vaccine came out,
Right.
it was like 10 years of testing.
Right.
So for us to do something in 10 months is a little sketchy to me.
Skeptical.
Like
And then-
anthrax
The
was
vaccine
never.
is also only for a specific age group,
Right.
15 to 26.
It still took them 10 years to get it.
But then, like they had to test to actually narrow it down to this age group. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like,
Because
how does
because
it?
Well-
this age group is the most prone to having the human papillomavirus.
So when
Well,
you
no, it
spread
was
that-
that age group was before they had their first period, and before the
Are you sure all women have their first period at 15?
Not all of them.
not all, but that you can't expect them to be.
Hey, I don't know nothing about this.
It's a general kind of most people have had it by now. Let's get it right around that time. That's why they picked junior high school age.
Are you aware that
Some have had it
Puberty.
at 9.
Right.
starts at 8 years old for
Yeah,
girls?
I'm talking about what they said. I'm not. I'm not
I mean,
the
these are just
scientist who.
things that
Yeah, no.
that, are,
This is
that they study to tie in.
Right. That's
Right.
probably why it
With
took a
that-
little longer too.
and it wasn't 15. It was junior high. So that is 11 to 13.
Right. Right.
Right.
15 is too high.
Right.
But that was their thinking
That age
about
range.
development and biology. Generally, I can't speak for the off topics, but that's not reason why. I don't.
One thing though, I would take it. I would take the vaccine. I'm not saying that I'm running down there right now to go get it, but when it is available, I think that I will go ahead and take it. Even though I don't do the flu vaccine myself, because I'm not big on the vaccine, and a lot of people do that every year. But I think this is a different situation. I don't think that the 10 years and how much time it takes to come up with a virus or what I'm gonna say a cure. It's every disease is different. So one disease may take 10, one disease may take 6 months. They didn't say for sure when it came out. They were like, we're not for sure we're gonna have a cure for this. So right now they're saying this is a miracle that we were able to get this right now. And also they have been working on what this they are calling a cure for this for at least 5 to 10 years, because this is not something that's new. What this is it's a way for our antibodies to be able to build.
You're talking about the treatment
the
itself.
treatment itself
of
is
the cells and
right.
the virus, like the total virus itself.
Exactly.
Not COVID,
It's
because I
right
don't want people to
because
get confusing on the conspiracy.
it's
There's a
that's-
difference between a cure and a vaccine. Are we talking about a
right.
cure?
We're talking
or a
about the vaccine. We're talking about a vaccine.
Okay.
But the thing is that what I'm saying is that they have been working on this vaccine to be able to get people to build these antibodies that we are using for COVID-19 by themselves for years. That's something that we've been trying to get people to do. So
it's a coronavirus. It's the cold.
Yeah,
it's the
that's
flu.
what I was-
Right.
I understand that.
right.
My
But-
thing is long term.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned anthrax. There has been multiple reports from soldiers who are saying that they now have side effects, like that have progressed later on in their life, like retinal failure. Some people are getting multiple sclerosis. I totally chopped that word up. But like there are many adverse side effects that are now appearing 10 to 15, 18, 20 years later. So in consideration of that, and I totally understand the importance and the need for speed on this vaccine and or cure. But also long term, the question comes in, like, what happens at 25, 30 years, not even our generation, but the next generation, they go sterile or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, not saying, I mean, that's like being extreme.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But this could actually present long term some effects that we do not know because long term testing has not been done.
Yeah, but what do you do for a problem that is now? You can't really think about
It's a hard
the
choice.
future,
Like, I'm
right?
not the president.
People
It's
are
a very
dying
hard
now,
choice.
so you have to figure out a way to slow this pace down.
I
And-
think people are gonna take it.
Yeah.
There's gonna be side effects. Some people are gonna die.
Yeah.
maybe I don't want to say
No,
that. Some
people are gonna
things
die.
will happen, and vaccines have had side effects for years. You can take the chickenpox vaccine and still get shingles or
Yep.
stuff like that. So there's gonna be side effects. There's gonna be those things. But I want that first round to go through like on a roller coaster. You let the first people, or when the first PlayStation come out, you let you let them work the bugs out first, and then I'll come back.
See
It's
how
2 or
it
3
goes.
generations of it goes, and by that time we might have herd immunity, and I don't need it anyway.
Do you think it would be a herd immunity to this? Because I think it just keeps
not-
transforming.
No, I think 50% of our population
Yeah.
is going to be the petri dish that it needs to keep evolving.
That's what I'm saying.
We
It's
got
going to
two
keep
That's the
evolving.
biggest thing I don't think anybody actually considers. The rate at which this
Oh,
is
where were we
actually
at on
evolving.
time? Okay.
Like this virus is actually mutating very rapidly. And like he said, the more it travels around this country and the more genetics that it picks up and takes in, the stronger and more it's going to change. So then also we get into the thing of, will this vaccine be able to work on this specific strand of COVID-19?
Yeah.
So like I said, it is an emergency. Like it does, like we do need a vaccine. We do need a cure. For me, it's just the safety issues. Like, but these are the questions that I'm sure like the big wigs have had to sit down and ask. Like, morally, what do we do? Like, what do? Do you continue to let more people die? Or do we take this chance? Like, at least it's a chance. You know what I'm saying? We know that this is gonna happen if we don't impede
Right.
the spread of this virus. But if we can at least throw something in there to slow it down a little bit, like, do you not try?
I will say that it's kind of off topic, but I partially don't trust it because it's being funded to us by government so hard. I mean,
Trump is really pushing.
not even him. President Obama popping up talking about he'll take the vaccine in front of the people.
Bush
I
said it
remember
too,
when
like, all of them
Obama
got it.
drank Flint water twice, and it was filtered water both times. He probably gonna take a saline shot. I don't trust you. I have a legit reason not to.
Hey, that was some bullshit that Obama did when he drank that
But
fucking
also,
water.
hold on, because it's not just Obama. It's Bush. I think
No, it's Bush, Obama,
all
and
three of them.
Clinton.
and Clinton.
Yeah.
All three
But
of them.
also, like, you got to take in consideration they're all in the age group where they're at high risk.
They're high risk, man. They are at
Yeah.
high risk.
So they can go first.
What the thing is to be is this is that we are dying disproportionately, unfortunately, black people. It's usually older part black people and people who have other conditions. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, we are facing the virus is facing us more and it's killing us more, unfortunately. And then we have to make a decision to take the virus, and we don't trust the government. So it's a tough situation, man. And I think that's why Obama
'Cause
is like,
viruses
I'm
and
going to try to
government
help
possesses,
this
like, bad
situation.
Do
things.
you think that the people trusted the polio vaccine when it first came out.
Right.
Well, people took it because
And wasn't it
People
messed
were
up?
dying from polio.
the polio was it was
Is that the
it
vaccine
was
that had
devastating.
mercury in it? Is that the one? Which one
I
had
don't know.
mercury in it?
And you got to realize polio was killing people at an actual.
Yeah, man, it was fucking. Yeah.
It was
At an
like-
alarming rate.
Yeah,
So
COVID is
it's-
far less.
It is.
COVID is a little bit sensationalized.
Right.
We got to tell the truth there too.
The percentages of death are much
Much
lower
lower.
compared to
But
polio.
before they actually came out with the actual vaccine that actually worked for polio,
Hmm
you know how long it took?
I think it was 10, 15 years right before they came out with
Try
it.
40 years.
Wow.
Ooh,
Yeah, sometimes it takes
40 years for one vaccine.
and right
See
now.
what I'm saying about 40 years versus 10 months?
But that's the thing, though. If you're looking at it, medical science has come a long way.
Long way,
Yeah,
long
That is
way.
very, very true.
Medical science back then was based off of everything was on paper. We had to go sift through it.
Mm-hmm.
There was no encyclopedias, or you know, encyclopedias, dictionaries. There was no internet. We had to, hey, how you doing?
Right.
Have you experienced this
Right.
before? Have you seen this in your practice
Right.
before? It was a survey among the doctors and the scientists trying to figure it out.
Hmm
Today, we have all of those devices. That
Research
we can use.
groups. We have
True.
much more
We have
information.
more
It's
funding.
right.
We have more everything
Mhm.
to
This is
go
true.
towards vaccines. For.
and just like I said, also
This is true.
it's this vaccine is not an overnight success. This is 5-10 years in working to get to this place that they're in to have this vaccine, because it's like I said, I think it was Fareed Zakaria who was talking about this and was giving more information about how they built this. It wasn't something that was overnight. It's definitely 5 to 10 years that they worked on this to try to get people to the place where they can have these antibodies to be able to fight these vaccines. I mean, these
It's just like when the first round of SARS came out.
right. Well, we didn't have anything for SARS, right?
We didn't need it. Did we even get SARS?
I don't
think SARS even really
only
made
a
it
couple
here.
people. Only a couple people
Yeah.
got
Then
that.
why
Really.
is SARS listed on the back of your Lysol can?
SARS
Why is
is-
coronavirus listed on the
Yeah.
back of mine?
It's the same thing. Like
Because
they're
it-
calling it SARS
Yeah.
coronavirus. It's just a different strain
Right.
of SARS that came
Right.
out years ago. Now we're trying to use this strain.
Is SARS
and
a
compare it
coronavirus?
to yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Oh,
So
okay.
pretty much like the vaccine attacks all coronavirus.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't what
Okay.
you're saying is 5 years ago. It wasn't made for COVID-19.
Right.
It was made for the classification of coronavirus
SARS.
That was ever there.
virus.
Right.
You know what I'm
The
saying?
swine flu or whatever. was there at that
Whatever
time.
type of coronavirus
Okay.
it is, that's what this vaccine originally started off on.
Mm.
So now what they're saying is that this vaccine is now being aimed in, like, they have narrowed it down to
Specific strains.
specific
right.
strains. So now that it is been adjusted, so it now attacks the COVID-19 strain.
So then this goes back to a few months after it first came out, when they were saying that they could probably, it goes back to what you were just saying, they could pinpoint proteins and counteract specific proteins. And this goes back to science and being able to break something down genetically and anatomically, which is
How do
what
you
they
think
didn't have in
basketball players are able
polio.
to get back on the court 2
Yeah.
weeks after a knee injury.
Because what they were
Stem
saying
cells.
is that
It's
they were close to getting the virus for the corona. They were close to getting this virus years ago, but money dried up. So this vaccine that they're working on, it was supposed to have been worked on long ago, but 2012 they're saying in Houston, but it fell apart because of money situations. So this is not just a
And
new idea
probably
that they
because of
pulled
need
out of
as
the air.
well.
You know what I mean?
It's like,
So
I think that's right
it's
when
something they've been
SARS
working on for a
came
while.
under control,
Right, right.
And it was
So-
just post swine flu. 'Cause
Yeah.
swine flu
So
was like
the man
2009,
was-
2010.
If the
Right,
man
right.
was still
Yeah,
as
makes
high,
sense.
yeah,
Right.
it would have been different.
Yep.
That
So
makes sense.
they've been working on it on these strains to try to figure it out. But you know what I mean? This is something that's finally worked for them. And I for real, it's a miracle that they were still able to get something that worked in time. So I think that for us to get back to normal, we're gonna have to make some sacrifices, and I just think that that's one of them.
I don't think anybody should be prepared to get back to normal though.
You don't think normal is something that we're gonna ever have again?
This might be the Mayans 2012. The world is going to change. This thing that was prophesized, because like we're going to be entering a new world doing this. Even when everything is wrapped up, it's not going to be the same landscape.
And there's definitely several things that will not go back to normal. Meetings, the way we meet, the way we talk. It's
way
definitely going to be
businesses are run,
Skype
period.
and web, Cisco, web. That's the future.
Like there's going to be a lot of cultural changes even after this is wrapped up.
Mhm.
Like like you said, like meetings, like the way a businesses run, sick days. Like I've never been able to call off work, and I'm not saying like I'm like legitimate. If I have a cold, they like don't come in.
Don't come in this
My
motherfucker.
question to that is, how do you call off work if you work from home?
Exactly. You can't. Nah, your computer. Right
They gonna take those sick hours away from you?
Right. You just turn your camera off.
Where we at, babe?
Next topic. What do you think of the black community giving their money to churches as part of tithes and offerings without receiving or seeing anything in return for those same communities?
Definitely a huge problem. I mean, the black community depends on the church. The pillar of the black community is the church, and most black communities are still pretty poor. And for us to be given, what was the percentage you're supposed to give the tithes? 10% of our earnings
Of your earnings?
to a place that's not really putting anything back into the community.
And isn't
That's
that every week?
that's every week.
Every week.
That's ridiculous. And you guys, if a person only getting paid, that's if you're getting paid once a week.
$350 a week, and you putting 10% of that $350 in your tithes and
$35.
offerings
That's a
every
lot of money, man. To me,
agree.
week. That $35 can fill your gas tank up. It could put another
Right.
meal on your table
Right.
for the week.
Can
Or-
I
yeah,
go?
yeah.
So in order to really break this down, you got to look at what the history of tithe and offering is.
Mm-hmm.
Tithe and offering was not the people outside the church.
It
So
was-
people who were not believers in the first place were not supposed to be there. So if you
Wow.
Johnny Rocket walking up the street,
Mhm.
you weren't supposed to have access to tithe and offering anyway,
Wow.
right? So unless you were part of that system,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't, because tithe and offering was feeding into a system of government that they had.
Wow.
Tithe and offering was to feed the Levites. The Levites were their governors and their judges and everything else.
Okay, so it was a tax, pretty much.
So it was taxes.
Right.
Right. So first off, black people in general who don't go to church should not even question why they receive it or not, because they're not part of the process.
Mm.
And black people who do go to church need to ask another more serious question.
Where is this money going?
No. Why is it only that 5% so the numbers balance between 1 and 10%
Mhm.
per church of actual working adults who actually tithe in the first place.
Wow.
So you have a church that's running off of 5 to 10% of the people giving,
Mm-hmm.
that's supposed to do everything else. And then on top of that, you have some churches that have 1,500, 2,000 members. Every church isn't like that. If you get smaller churches, you get different demographics and
Right.
different issues. But you speaking about a church that has 1,500, 2,000, 10,000 members, you have a building that's 1 million square feet. That every Sunday you come in needs air conditioning. And if there's not air conditioning, you're gonna complain and go somewhere else.
Right.
Who pays for that?
The tithes.
Right. You have 10,000 members. You got people organizing, putting everything together, cameramen, all of that. Who pays for that?
Wow.
Your tithes. So sometimes there's barely enough money to cover. Forget the pastor,
Mm-hmm.
the lady who works administration and answers the phone when you stressed out or whatever. You got to call the pastor for counsel. And the lady he's hired to answer the phone for him, tithe barely covers her sometime. And then you get 1 million square foot building and you put 10,000 people in there at one time.
But should you be
But you-
dependent
that's
on
also-
religion to pay for these
that's
things?
a lot of air conditioning.
But on this-
I'm just saying, religion shouldn't be, work should be paying for these things. You shouldn't be dependent on people to pay for these things just
Especially
because
if
they
you got
believe
the
in a
whole
religion.
five
That's what I was about to
different
say.
I was gonna get
properties,
there.
three cars,
Now,
and-
think it's
there's
different
and
in
there's
the
a
sizes of the church.
there's also a secondary ideology that the pastor owns all of this stuff. Don't get me wrong, there are pulpit pimps, and I hate them.
Definitely.
But most of the times, your TD Jakeses, your all those other guys, they get hounded by the FBI and they get hounded by the IRS.
Why? They
every
don't have to
3
pay
years.
taxes,
You know
though.
why? Because they sell books. Their
Wow.
income, TD Jakes' income has been proven 5 or 6 times by the IRS to not even come from the church's money.
When he sell a book,
gives more-
does he have to pay taxes?
He pays tithes himself. After paying taxes, he pays tithes to the church he preaches at. So he gives more money than the church.
So
than
he ain't even the owner of the church he preaches.
Yes, he is.
So
It has nothing to do with that. It's about
But
the
you
fact
can't
that he
prove that,
pays
though.
into the system. The IRS has. He's been investigated 25 times.
But the people-
all of that is open investigation.
Like
You can
what I'm
look
saying
at
is
it.
this: if
Freedom
Ida
of
Mae
Information Act.
Ida Mae goes to church, She
Okay.
puts in $100 into the offering plate. The IRS is not going to know that. Like, you can't.
Yeah, they do.
How?
Because you report it and it comes back.
So you can report tithes
Is that
that you
why
give
they
for
have
the
you
year?
put
You report it. That's why you put your name. You report it. It all goes back to the IRS.
Really?
Something like
You
this.
you will
I have
never get your money
I've
back.
never seen nobody do that.
You will never. I get my statement back every year.
Really?
Every year in January, I get a
think
statement
I
back
have
every
I've
year.
never heard that before.
Yes.
You know what? I never, in the 10, 20, 15 years I went to church, never saw my sister's grandmother get anything back for her tax return from the church.
I would say that as well is you have to make a certain amount of money in order for it to be enough money to count as a tax write-off
Okay.
anyway.
Okay.
So there's a
So it's still taken from the bottom.
I'm not gonna
Right.
tell a lie. I'm not gonna tell a lie here. You know what I'm
You're
saying?
giving like best case scenarios. We're talking about how many churches are in the country. There has to be over a million.
97% of churches in the country have less than 75 members. So you're talking about 75 people. So the whole aspect of money is totally different. 75 total people. Some of them are children, and still 3 or 4 people are tithing, and you still have $1,000 a month rent to keep this building open.
I understand.
It's still financially most of the time. Most pastors
Wish I
pay,
had less
e-
members
even
than that.
most
Like
pastors
you keep going
pay
from TDJ
to
the
go.
75. I'm
No,
talking
I'm
about
talking
the 200,
because-
300, 500
because
to
most
1,000
because most churches
congregation
fall
churches.
into that category, and then when you get to 200 to 300, you kind of get better case scenario. The church that I was at when I was in Las Vegas, we had 300 members, and the pastor still had a job. And people were pissed off because they needed stuff, whatever. Everybody wants access, and then counseling. Everybody has counseling, whether we've gotten to a point in church where it's not so spiritual and we don't tell people to pray it away.
Right.
So counselors in church are legit counselors now.
Yeah.
And people, all that's free. Well, in order to have access to it, I can't be at work.
Right.
So people are pissed off now because the pastor's going to work at getting off work at 5 o'clock, and they don't have access to him. But enough people aren't tithing for him.
Right.
So it becomes a catch-22. And a lot of times we just look at the financial aspect of it. But I will say that the church is broken. And I will say that financial system doesn't necessarily work, and I will say it doesn't really fit our system now, because the church, the other half of tithing was also to feed the homeless and feed the poor and feed all those things.
Right.
We have welfare now from the government that is supposed to take care of those things. So
But it doesn't, though.
a lot of times what you're paying with your tithes is you simply paying the dues that you would have paid to be part of any other
But
club.
the thing I look at is this: we got, just like you said, the pulpit pimps. I mean, most every reverend that I've ever known in my life drives a Cadillac, Jaguar. They all have nice cars and nice things. How do they have these
Nice house.
things?
Me
How do
growing
they
up,
have
that's the
these things
image of the
right?
pastor I have
If the
growing
church
up.
is struggling, why they always got nice cars and nice
that's
suits?
what I thought when I was a kid
I don't-
coming up, because I'm looking at my pastor like,
I mean, if we're
okay,
supposed to
you
be
got
walking like
let me-
Jesus
6
walks
cars in the
everywhere.
park
Like,
in
and he
your
stayed with people.
driveway. You own 8 properties,
I agree.
and on top of that,
I
you
agree.
own your own construction company, and you still asking for money, and you still can't help the
I
50
agree.
people in your church.
Yeah.
And you talking
still
about,
can't
but
keep
here's the thing:
10
that guy,
people in the
that guy
community.
who owns that construction company is probably tithing himself, and he's like, "Yeah, I own a construction company, but the money I make at my construction company has to keep my business afloat too. I can't just do. I know a pastor who works at an engineering firm that is like literally right there, and he gives 10% of his engineering profits to the church every year, and he intentionally does 10% of his businesses as churches.
Wow.
If a church has construction right now, they will design it for free. And then part of what they do is the whole company takes 2 weeks off and they go build houses in Mexico.
Wow.
Right. And this ain't everybody. This
Right,
ain't
right,
everybody.
right.
Right. But there is a portion of church that does it right, because when like I said, when I grew up, my pastor was a tow truck driver. Right? Until I got out here and I started going to churches with more members, I never saw a pastor that didn't have a job.
Wow.
When the last church I was at, when that pastor finally quit working, he cried.
Wow.
He said, choked up because I'm unnervous.
But
I'm scared.
I thought that the churches,
No.
their mission was to make sure that the pastor didn't have to do all those things, because that's what the tithes was, to make sure that he didn't have to worry about those things, because he takes
church
care of
paid
the
the
congregation and all.
pastor's
Right.
If
That's what
you have enough people tithing, that wouldn't be the question. But they operate off of 1 to 10% of the people
That's
tithing.
crazy.
And then not only is it his income, but you have to think about he has a secretary, He has other people counseling.
But she should be doing this. She should be doing this for free.
And there's a no, she shouldn't.
Why not?
She's there 8 hours a day. When does she work?
Yeah, that's true. If it's 8 hours a day,
you know what I'm saying? It's in a lot of ways it's a business, and businesses have operating costs that people don't look at. But I'm going to say, as much as I will semi-defend that process, I will also semi-tear it down. And the current Western church is not built on old religious ideologies.
No.
There is a phase of evolution that went through there that came from Europe.
Yep.
And the European ideology of how things should run is not what things
based
should be.
It's based on capitalism.
It's a business model.
I wouldn't say it was based on capitalism. It's based on...
But that's what
it's based on a priority other than it's based on a different set of priorities. I wouldn't call it capitalism, but there's a different set of priorities. It's not even part of it is conquest, because the idea that I'm supposed to save souls is nowhere written in the Bible. That came from Europeans, and Europeans like the conquest stuff, right? A lot of Christians say, if you're not saving souls, you're not doing it. There's nothing in the Bible that says I'm supposed to go save a soul. Matter of fact, it says that man does not come to God unless God asks for it. So that means God is saving the souls. Christ said, if I was raised from the dead, I will awaken. I will draw all men unto me. That's his job. That's a whole nother story. I can preach.
The one thing about the European views of the Bible is that I think that they gave more of man power.
They did.
They wanted to empower the man, the person, more than the actual God.
Yes.
So those things aren't talked about as much because we want to have the power.
On that aspect, and even in like the femininity, like the female side of all things, like the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Mother, like they removed the woman. Pretty much the power of the woman from
the Catholicism, the Catholics, they still hold the woman high and everything.
Okay,
because Mary is...
James' version is Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Where is the woman? Where is Mary?
Mary was... Catholicism is not the original teaching. Catholicism is actually, in softer terms, a cult.
Right.
And so the idea of where the woman is and where the woman isn't is taken out of context, because you have to realize it was written at a time where patriarchy was the thing. That doesn't mean that the woman doesn't exist, because again, quoting the Bible, God is not a respecter of men.
But God
does not care if you're a male or female, Jew or Gentile, Greek or Roman. That these are Bible verses,
right?
And what happened was, from there it went to a society that then tried to twist it. But if you're reading the true text, you should know that there are many female preachers. Deborah, there are women who are leaders. There are female judges. The first judge in the Bible was a woman.
Wow.
So there's a lot of wisdom and all those things in the Bible are referred to as a woman. The Proverbs 31 woman is not a woman, it's wisdom.
Wow.
So it's the
weird
woman
that
is actually valued in the Bible.
Right, and it's weird that they devalue women, so tough, and even in Catholics, they don't even have any women priests. That's something that doesn't happen very often. And even with reverends, you don't see many women reverends and preachers.
That's where Westernism came back and it destroyed something. This is an issue that doesn't just affect black people; it affects all of us. And what you tend to realize is that the church is broken. Yeah. I can't say it no other way, in one way or the other.
When he says the church is broken, it's more the institution.
Yeah,
right.
It's not even just the church; the institution of religion.
The foundation is broken.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And it just doesn't stand for Catholics, Baptists. It doesn't just stand for Christians. If you look upon most religious institutions that are actually run like an institution, you know what I'm saying? Like, not like the Hindus, but like I'm talking about the mosque.
Right.
You know, these different sects that actually have turned religion into a business. You know what I'm saying? And they actually depend on their congregation to actually survive. And that's my issue with it's organized religion. You know what I'm saying? And it's the institution that actually feeds upon the lesser of their congregation. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you said there's only, if you say only 5 to 10% of the congregation is actually tithing, do you think it's the people with money, or do you think the people who are asking God to bless them?
It's got to be the people
with money. It's a mix, because sometimes, man.
Like, I'm just saying, I seen my grandmother grow up in the church and give her money every single weekend to actually getting kicked out the church when she missed a month of not tithing.
Wow.
Yeah, I know those days.
So you know what I'm talking about? So my ideas of the actual institution of church are different. I hear what you're saying now, and maybe things have changed, because that's what actually turned me off to the church. Like seeing how my grandparents got there.
Wow.
So yes, there are good churches, but then you still have the institution and what this is actually, like you said, you have the pulpit pimps. You know what I'm saying? Because the business of church is still a business, and there are people who like, I can make money off of this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've had to get the gab. I'm a good talker. Like it's like you can be a motivational speaker. Pick up the Bible because that's what you knew as a child,
Right.
and you can get up there and you can run a church
And
gain
you can,
many followers, especially in today's.
but you can tell the difference, and with that, a lot of motivational books actually quote the Bible.
Yeah,
They do. So it's. I agree. I'm not by far. I know I'm taking up all of this time.
No, it's good.
I'm by far not
actually
saying
teaching me a
that. I'm by far not saying that. Matter of fact, I would have lost my faith if it wasn't written. If it wasn't written that we would fall astray, that there would be false prophets, that all of this stuff would not happen. Right now, I would probably have lost my faith. I didn't go to church for 2 years. I just started going back to church.
Okay.
Because of this and race issues and everything else. I'm not dealing with an institution that's not gonna.
Right.
That's not gonna. I'll do it myself. You know what I'm saying? But in that 2 years, I actually like got closer in faith, and sometimes it made me like, okay, I need to go back to church because like now it's kind of like Moses, let my people go. But like I will not ever stand here and be the person to say that church is not broken or be like, nah, you wrong. No, you're right. People steal money.
Yeah.
People steal money.
It's the root.
People steal money.
Yeah.
There's pastors with Jaguars.
Yeah.
There are. If you sitting there at your church and your pastor got a Jaguar and you went to church today in a 1992 Honda Civic and it's homeless people and you had to jump over crackheads
Just
and
know
homeless
that you are
people
exempt from
just to
tithing. You
get
don't
to the
have
church.
to. You don't have to.
Hold on, and you had to
From
jump
now
over
on.
homeless people to get to church, and you had to jump over people with heroin needles in their arm to get to church while you was driving that Honda Accord and you pulled up next to the pastor and nothing around that church has changed in 30 years. It's your fault for not leaving.
Yeah, that's real.
That's your fault. You've been sitting there following that this whole time. It may be part of your fault, and it may be his because you never listened. You never studied yourself, and a lot of people take that.
But they did it for God, not the pastor.
No, they do it for the pastor because, and again, this goes back to a jacked up culture in the church because sometimes the church teaches you, like you said, to give the man power instead of God. If you don't open that thing up and look at it yourself, if you're not reading them 66 books yourself, you are. What is the purpose of church? A lot of people think the purpose of church is for us to get to know God. It's not.
No.
The purpose of church is for us to stay on one accord. It's just for us to get together, remember that we have unity.
Okay.
That's it. Because you're supposed to actually develop your own relationship, work yourself out with fear and
Your own,
trembling by
right,
yourself.
exactly.
You're supposed to know every jot and every tittle by yourself. You're supposed to be the Bereans and study by yourself.
We see a lot of people fighting to get into the buildings right now, but the buildings don't even really, by what's your statement of what religion is, we don't even need a building to do that, right?
By my prediction, because of COVID and because of, like you said, things were being put in place anyway, the face of going to building church might not even look the same in 3 years. These people are probably holding on to the last semblance they ever have of having 1 million square foot
Online,
church.
your tithing's online.
Everything else.
Building fund.
People actually meeting up. I got a homeboy, his whole church, all he does is feed the homeless. All he does. And then they come together online, and then when they meet together, they're feeding the homeless or they're at some drug thing doing something else.
Right. And if your church isn't doing that, man, then you need
basic.
to you need to
Why are you-
Because
you probably why are you
yeah.
going to church?
you don't need to have money to go assist. To go assist.
Right, and that's what I was saying. Most
You
people
can
be just
volunteer.
volunteering
Right.
time. And that's
Time, talent,
hey,
and treasure, as they say, which
that's
is not
money.
even a Bible verse.
That's money. That's real. That's real.
So
All right, fellas. So that's gonna wrap up today's segment, today's show.
Indubitably.
We do thank you for coming out.
Appreciate you boys, man.
Thank you.
yes, sir. Thank you.
And we'll get up next week. I want to do something more about this religious. Let's keep this topic going a little bit.
I'm gonna come more
it's
prepared.
a couple
I'm a
things I
little
want
rusty.
to.
He came in here
I didn't study.
scripture and everything else.
I just want to go a little bit more
I feel
about
like
this
my
topic.
mama gonna be disappointed in me.
It's a couple things I want to go over. So, into next week, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
And I'll take that hot seat. If I got to stand on,
For sure.
I'll be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm be like, hey, look, church, I was over there with cuz. We got to get some stuff together because I was over there looking stupid.